Louis Bernstein's wondering if this is happening today. We're having a long conversation with Curt in the background, just getting ready for it. Thanks for waiting. We appreciate you. Here we go. I'm just going to jump into this show and tell you a little bit about what's happening today. So we have Curt Sassak, and we're going to talk about branding yourself on social media, which is really key. I was in a one-to-one meeting this morning with somebody, and I was telling them how important the branding, having the name up with you when you're in a meeting, even if it's not on a public broadcast like this, having your branding up. Obviously, you can see I got this guy up here. You know that this is BizDev Live when you're looking at it. Really important. So we're going to be talking about all that. We're going to be talking about how you can really use social media to stay in front of your customers and remain relevant. We'll also be talking about things like midlife crisis and career change. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation. We're going to jump into all of that. Stay tuned. Be with me. We're going to be right back after the BizDev Live theme.
BizDev Live, BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. BizDev Live, BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration, BizDev Live, BizDev Live, business development, not even selling it. BizD with C, brought to you by Cameron T, BizD with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. BizDev Live, BizDev Live, BizDev Live. This is business development, not even selling it.
All right, so really excited to get into this, and we got Louis checking in, Curt, we got Ann Pilcher checking in, we got Denise checking in from Houston. Thank you so much for letting us know where you're coming in from. Louis, let us know where you're coming in from. Ann, let us know where you're coming in. Rebecca, I believe she's coming in from New Jersey in the house. Thank you, Rebecca. Good morning to you and Happy New Year to you. Thank you so much for being with me. I'm going to introduce our guest here with no further ado, Mr. Curt Sassak. Right? Curt has worked in food and beverage for 35 years. When the pandemic hit, he realized how quickly things can change for the worst. I can commiserate with you there, Curt. From that point, he realized he needed to brand himself and learn to use social media to his advantage to create better opportunities and be better prepared for the future in the event of some unfortunate event. And he is helping people in the wine industry, people in the food and beverage industry, folks in the wellness space really improve their brand online. Thank you so much for being on the show with me today, Curt.
Yeah, hey, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. I've been following your page, love your content, so it's an honor. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And we got more people checking in here. Ann saying Happy New Year. Abigail, good morning, coming in from the Bronx. Louis is saying he's coming from Atlanta, Georgia. We got a lot of the U.S. Checking in here. If you're coming in from another country, let us know. Checking in from Connecticut, Mr. Tom Moore, thank you for that. Ann Pilcher from the Pocono Mountains. And I'm going to be up your way. Winter break in third week of February. We just booked it with the kids there. So excited. We're going up to Great Wolf Lodge in the Pocono. So I'll be up your way. Excited for that. The kids are excited for that. Curt, talk to us about how you're helping people right now with your services. So you are a coach for LinkedIn and social media in general. How are you helping people get started? Because you have a particular niche. You're helping those folks that are struggling to get started and find their brand online, right? And Ann Pilcher says, nice about my vacation. Thank you, Ann. Talk to us, Curt, about how you're helping people right now.
Yeah, so the short answer to that is, and to get to the point is, when I learned, prior to 2 years ago, I didn't understand social media, and learning how to use social media is like drinking from a fire hose. It's not rocket science, but there's a lot to learn, and there is a science to it. So, and it took me a while to learn all of it. So my goal is to help people get from point A to point B much quicker than what I did. So the sooner you get from point A to point B, the sooner you can grow your network, the sooner you can grow opportunities and earn revenue.
I love that. And so talk to us, because I don't think obviously the pandemic, I read that in the bio, but you didn't wake up one day and say, I want to coach people on social media. You've been in the culinary space as chef for a long time. What did little Curt Sassak want to be when he was growing up, and how has that changed? Tell us about this journey. And we got Gabe Leal checking in. Thank you, sir, for promoting the show on his. He has a daily. Anybody that wants to see what's going on with live on LinkedIn and live shows on LinkedIn, and get your show promoted on LinkedIn, got to check in with Gabe. Really great resource for you there. All right, go ahead, Curt. Talk to us about this story, this journey.
So do you want me to go back as far as when I was a chef, or just start with the social media journey?
I would say, go back.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's always interesting in hearing somebody's personal journey. What really shaped and influenced you? What was behind some of the choices? It's one of those interesting things. And one of the things I like to do with the show is sort of see how that journey has changed. Where were the twists and turns? And because I think we all have this life journey, and it's really interesting to hear everybody's story.
Okay. Thank you. So long story short, I knew I wanted to be a chef from the age of like 12. And I literally had my life mapped out from the age of 12. I knew I wanted to be a chef. I knew I wanted to travel and work overseas. And it's weird. It's kind of like when you're in love, you just know, you can't explain it. I just knew I wanted to be a chef. All my friends in high school, we had career day, and people were like, oh, what do you want to do? Well, what skills are you good at? Or what do you like? I just knew. It's weird. I just always knew. And so, I just started working in the best places I could find. My first job was at Pizza Hut at 15. And then my second job was in a psychiatric institute, but it was like an upscale psychiatric institute where everything was made in-house. So it was like nice food. And it's kind of weird. I was doing a buffet there once, and then one of the girls I went to high school was a patient. I'm like, oh, what are you doing here? Anyways, so then from there, I started working in nicer places. And, I was knocking out the goals one by one, and, everything was going according to plan. I always knew what I wanted. And, I got to the point where I finally moved overseas. I've lived and worked in 7 countries. And, that's made possible when you work in 5-star hotels, because they have the budget to move people around the world. And that was, I love traveling. I love living in other countries. I love learning new cultures, new languages. And, so like I said, everything was going according to plan. And then I'd say probably around about my late 30s, probably around, I think 36 or 37 years old. I'm 51 now. I just remember I just wasn't feeling motivated at my job. Actually, I think it was around, I was around 36. And at the time I thought it was the job. So, let's change the job. So I did that. Went to that job and wasn't happy there either. And I didn't know why. So I thought, it must be the job. So I changed that job. Then I got another job. Wasn't really fulfilled there either, but it was a great place to work. This was in the Maldives. And for those of you who don't know where the Maldives are, they're very small islands south of Sri Lanka. Okay, so, and, but even though I was very happy at the place, my heart, my passion wasn't into it. So long story short, for that, I say that a lot. I kept changing jobs for probably about 5-6 years. And then it finally dawned on me one day. I thought, well, shit, man, maybe the problem is me. But see, I had my whole life mapped out. And the thought of even changing careers was like, it wasn't even on my radar. And then when I started realizing that maybe I need to make a change, I started getting angry, because I invested, 27 years of my life as a chef, and I worked insane hours like chefs do. But see, at the time though, that was my passion. So that was the center of my universe, to the point to where if I was happy at work, it translated to my personal life. If I was unhappy at work, it translated to my personal life. I loved what I did. It was my passion. that was the center of my universe. That, that was to me like what your kids are to you. Although I don't want to trivialize having kids. I don't mean it that way, but it was the center of my universe, just like I'm sure your family is the center of your universe, or for anybody else that has a family.
Yeah, understood.
So and then when I realized that, like I said, I got angry. I went through depression, started drinking a bit too much at that time. And, because I just felt lost. I'm like, wait a minute, I have my whole life mapped out. What the fuck? So, I was just, like I said, felt lost for a while. And then I finally relented. I'm like, you can only fight the universe for so long, right? And, I was kind of playing the victim for a while. When you're going through a rough time, you think the universe owes you something. A lot of people do. I think it goes back to when we're kids. I got my bike stolen once and my parents bought me a new one. Or when I got, when some kid picked on me, I was upset. My parents got me ice cream. But, when you grow up, it doesn't work like that. There's not some universal checkbook that says, oh, you've been wronged. Here, let me write you a check, so to speak. It doesn't work that way. So I finally had to learn to just suck it up, stop playing the victim, and stop being depressed, stop whining like a bitch. Because what I learned from that was, when we go through stuff in life, we tend to play the victim. We tend to wallow on our situation. And then from there, it's like when you're wallowing in your current situation, you're only making it worse.
Absolutely.
So if you're here and you need to be there, focus all your energy and attention there, not
so
here.
Remind us really quickly where you are in your career and what's going through your head. So you've hit this low spot, and what brought that about again?
My passion for my job just started dying. There wasn't anything that happened. Like my friend who used to tour with rock bands, is one of the engineers. He had to leave because he had a back injury. So he couldn't lift the heavy road cases. So he had to change careers. For me, it wasn't anything like that. I just started losing the passion for my job. And, I just I felt no fulfillment in my personal or professional life.
And so what ended up snapping you out of it and making you move to something else?
So I went through that, and it started with one day I woke up and I just felt I was tired of being negative. I was tired of bitching about life. I was tired of making excuses. I was just tired, because I was unhappy, and I was just, when you're unhappy, you're going to bitch about everything usually. And I got tired of it. And I thought, okay, and I guess you could say I had an epiphany. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But I thought, well, at that point, I was working in a small restaurant where I was cooking, because I thought, okay, let me try going to a small restaurant and just see, maybe I'm tired of the corporate world. So it was a very small restaurant where I was the only one in the kitchen. I was doing all the cooking and still wasn't happy. So I tried different places, right? I tried everything to make sure that, hey, I don't want to leave this business that I've invested so much in unless I'm sure. So anyways, I thought to myself, I'm just tired of feeling this way. I'm tired of bitching. I'm tired of the negativity. I just thought, okay, there's certain things in my life I can't change right now. But what I can change is my attitude. I can stop bitching about stuff. You have a choice. You can either bitch about it or you can keep your chin up and fight through it, whatever it is. It's like that saying, smooth seas don't make a skilled sailor. So I thought, and that was the beginning of a shift in the mindset for me. Okay. And so that was the beginning. Then I started practicing gratitude, and they may sound like woo-woo stuff you see on one of these talk shows, but it does work. I just started.
It's exactly what I was thinking about as you were talking about this, because I think so many people find themselves in a place where they get into a place of unhappiness, and also a point of like, what am I doing? And so that's remembering what you're grateful for, that piece of understanding what you enjoy. And because I think a lot of people get into the game of, and I'm totally, I know there's, if anybody's in the audience that knows the word for it, but it's like a gambling fallacy. You stay at the table because you've already invested this much.
Yep.
Right. So you're talking about, I've spent so much time in this career, put so much effort into this effort. into
Yeah.
this in this piece. And so you feel like you have to stay at the table. So if you ever find yourself, you're playing blackjack, poker, whatever, and you find yourself having this thought of, well, I've already committed this much. I should stay in because I've back out. That is a bad sign. So I appreciate that a great deal, because I think that's a great learning nugget for anybody that's walked down a path and doesn't see happiness and fulfillment at the end of that rainbow, right?
Well,
and Pilcher, by the way, says we have a lot of conversations going on. I'm going to bring them back in as we get more into the social media conversation of asking people if they brand themselves online. We got some folks that say, I'll put those comments up as we're going on. Tom and Rebecca, thank you for answering those. We got a question from Gabe. I'm going to put those up, but I want to get through your story here. So you get to this point, you're like at the end of the line with the chef journey. So what happens next?
And so, to use your analogy, I was all in, right? So anyway, so I just, the changing point was when I just stopped acting like a bitch. I started owning it, and because really at the end of the day, we're responsible for our lives, whatever happens. Okay. The pointing the finger thing, that only works actually it doesn't work. So I started focusing on what I could control, and I started practicing gratitude. I started practicing, even though I didn't have much at the time because I didn't have much money. I started just practicing gratitude for what I had. Then I moved to Austin, Texas. And then the job that I have now with the promotional agency kind of fell into my lap, because when I moved to Austin, I left the chef world, okay, after 27 years. And I was like, ooh, I don't know what I want to do. And then this job fell into my lap. And it's a promotional agency. And I joined in 2012, and we had 15 employees in 4 cities in Texas. And now we have 200 employees in 9 states. And so I've been doing that for the past 10 years. And it's been a good break because, I work mostly from home. And it has been really a good change, because I just couldn't handle being in is what we call in the kitchen operations, right? Or what you would say if you're in the restaurant field. So that is prior to my LinkedIn and social media thing. That is my whole career. In essence, did I not answer something, or I feel like I'm forgetting something?
No, I was just asking what you pivot to. So you're doing right now. You work with a company called Wine Taster's Choice.
Yep.
And so, how has social media sort of helped? Because you made this transition and you made this choice to get into social media. So, what did you see in social media that made you feel like this was the place you needed to be operating in?
Well, 2 years ago, actually almost exactly 2 years ago, so before the pandemic, I just started learning more about social media. But then the thing that really hit me was the pandemic. Well, like it hit everybody, but the pandemic opened my eyes, or I should say made me realize how things can just disappear like that. A lot of people lost their jobs, or even more. I'm fortunate I still have a job, even though I took a pay cut like a lot of people, but I still have a job. I'm lucky. But when the pandemic hit, I thought, I'm not going, because in my entire career, I only had one source of income, one job, like a lot of people. And especially if you're a chef or you work in the food and beverage industry, it's kind of hard to have another income or another job. So, or almost impossible. So I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not going to be in a position in the future where if something like a pandemic or some other crappy event happens where maybe I lose a source of income or revenue. And from that point, I decided, you know what? I'm going to be better prepared. I'm going to focus on branding myself. And because your brand is bigger than any job, it's bigger than any title, it's bigger than any salary. Your brand you take with you everywhere you go. Your brand is going to get you opportunities. It's going to get you a better salary. It's going to get you on podcast guesting gigs. It's going to get you more opportunities. And, and plus now, it's more than ever, it's easy, and this is kind of a side note, it's easier now more than ever to earn a living with just Wi-Fi and a laptop. So, like I said, the pandemic made me think, you know what, I'm going to be better prepared. So I started focusing on branding myself. I took several courses on how to use social media and how you can brand yourself to either make revenue or if you just want to brand yourself, just to have a brand, and it's been a wonderful learning experience. I never realized that there's actually a science to social media. There is, and you can make it work for you. You can use it to help you get more opportunities, make revenue, start a side hustle. And so that's
and
what
I
I'm
want
enjoying.
to focus in on this because I think, we were talking about this before we jumped on, because I'm not Gary Vaynerchuk. You're not Gary Vaynerchuk. We're not Tony Robbins. We're not, social media gurus that have millions of followers and all this kind of stuff. But everybody has a starting place. And getting into this social media conversation, I was asking everybody that was watching here, are they branding themselves online? And so we had a few folks that answered honestly. Thank you for that. Tom Morris at Cameron Toth is not branding himself. And Rebecca Wakefield says, no, I'm not. I need a starting point.
Brand yourself.
Right. And so, this is why I do this show, for entrepreneurs, for people that are trying, if you have it all figured out, you're probably not watching this show, right? If you're trying to get a start and a leg up, you're watching the show. And I just want to bring in for everybody, because Curt talked about it. Why did I even invite him onto the show? And so we go to his profile, right? And so a couple things called out to me on your profile, right? And so in it, you can sort of see here, let me see if I can make it bigger, but podcast host, public speaker, those are things to me that if you're saying that's what you want to do, so if you're looking to be on shows like this and have people invite you on the show, put it out there that you're a public speaker, that you want to be a public speaker, or that you want to be doing podcasts, or that you are a host of a podcast, because automatically that's a signal to me that, hey, this is somebody that might be open to this opportunity, right? And so I love that. I also love that you have the wine glass emoji next to your name, because you're somebody that sells. So the branding is there, and we can go up, further and talking about the LinkedIn coach and social media coaching. You have that right on the profile. And so I think for folks, it's one thing to say you do something, and it's a whole other thing when you see it in action. And that definitely is responsible for us being here today. So I wanted to show people that. Thank you. All right. So talk to us a little bit about, this idea, and we'll get into some of these talking points here, Curt, the idea of branding oneself. So how have you seen this sort of work for yourself, and how are you seeing it work for your clients that you're working with?
Well, it really comes down asking yourself a lot of questions. So how did I start? For the first 18 months of my time where I really focused on LinkedIn. I'm not talking about the previous 7 years where I just had my resume. I'm talking about after that. So for the first 18 months, I was debating on which path I wanted to follow, because I have a number of skills that I could use and focus on. But if I'm going to do something, I want my heart to be in it. And so it just really came down to me asking myself a question. What's a problem I had? And then I asked, well, okay, do other people have that same problem? Is there an audience for it? And the answer was yes. And so that's how I determined. So that's the start, because you have to figure out what your niche is. That's how you start with branding yourself. You got to figure your niche. Okay. So again, ask yourself, what's your pain point? What's the problem that you have? In my case, the problem was me thinking back to who I was 2 years ago, where I didn't understand social media, content marketing, or understand that it is a science, and you can use it to generate more, again, opportunities, revenue, whatever. So I first set on my niche, and then to brand yourself, I mean, it really comes down to, once you figure out your niche and your target audience. Here, let me give you an example. Let's say you sell surfing products. Well, hopefully you're going to look like a surfer. Hopefully you're going to talk like a surfer. You're going to use a font that might be found on surfing products. You're going to use language that surfers may speak, because it's like the best example I've seen is there's, I think it's a dog food company, and it's called BarkBox. And if you look at their marketing, like they use words that like instead of saying love, they'll say wov. And they talk about one of their products and one of their ads better than 1,000 tummy rubs, because dogs like to have their tummy rubbed. It'll make your dog love you. They use language that appeals to dog owners. So to brand yourself, first figure out your niche. Then when you figure out the niche, the path you want to follow, you have to do a deep dive into your audience. And so what does that look like? Well, I took a document and I created my target audience in my head. Okay. I thought, okay, who's my target audience? What's their age range?
And hold on, Curt, because I think this is great content, but I want to back up a step because we have this question from Gabe Leal. And so for folks that are just trying to break into social media, I think there's some definite things in my mind that sort of got me over the point of being in a place where you don't have a presence online, you're not posting content online, and getting over that doorstep. And then we have another question from Abigail, because I think this is something that also you'll have people that do like the New Year resolution thing. They get into the gym and then a few months later they die off. And usually with social media, that looks like, you go hard for like 3 days, you're all over social media, you get burnt out really quick. And they're like, all right, I got work and other ththings to do. This is not for me. So
do you want me to answer those two?
Yeah, I want you to hit on this because I think this is because what you're getting into, I think, is a little bit more, I don't want to say down the road, but
fair enough.
It's a step or two beyond just getting started. So I want to talk to these, and then once you get started, I think really keying down into who your audience member is. I remember a great presentation from a conference. Woman on stage was talking about whenever she gets online, she's talking to a specific person, which is that's your target audience, what you're talking about. And I love that kind of advice. But for folks that are just trying to struggle to get their account set up and really break into this social media thing, what do you recommend for them to do?
Okay. So this question from Gabe, great question. What's the biggest hurdle for someone breaking into social media? The biggest hurdle is yourself, because, I ask myself similar questions. There is no hurdle. Just do it. I know that sounds easier said than done, but a lot of people worry, well, I don't know where to start or what should I do or what should I post, blah, blah, blah. Just start sharing content of value.
Right. You just need this guy. And then the greatest thing in most social media, I mean, just about everything that, every medium, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, you do not need to pay anybody anything other than your phone plan, and you could work ways around Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff. I mean, basically all you need to be able to do is get online and post content. And what content you set up your account, and how would you recommend people, because we're talking about branding today, right? So there is this, I think a lot of people will get stuck, right? All right, I get on to I mean, for folks that are already on LinkedIn here, you put your name in. That's easy. I love LinkedIn because it's as simple as it's your name, but obviously there's some things around banner graphics and bylines, different areas that people need to set up. So in terms of that branding conversation that they need to be having in their head to start, sort of building their online reputation, what would you recommend for people to sort of create things from a good base?
So first of all, determine what your niche is. Are you a chef? Or are you a wellness expert or whatever? So first determine what your subject matter is. Okay. And then to get started, just start sharing your knowledge. Okay. Just that. I mean, people are going to come to you if you teach them something. Well, there's different ways you can create value. You can either entertain, you can inspire, you can educate, but just pick something you're comfortable talking about. It could be, even if you're telling jokes, if you're comfortable telling jokes and assuming they're good jokes, then start with that. I mean, there's no rules in that regard. Just start talking about what you're comfortable with. And as far as doing either video or just a text-based post or pictures, do what you're most comfortable with. You have to do what like one thing I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start practicing my copywriting skills. So I'm going to dedicate one post a week that's going to be centered around copywriting. So, so again, find your target. What is your niche? Okay. Again, is it chef, wellness, whatever? 2, just start sharing your knowledge. Okay. And then, I mean, there is.
Let me say something here too, because I want to back you up on this. I think it's really important because you were saying tell jokes, and for somebody that's maybe selling insurance or they're I'd love to know if you're watching this right now, tell us what you're doing. I think one of the biggest things with Gabe's question and even with Abigail, which I think Abigail, I'm looking at her profile on LinkedIn, and Abigail, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're wanting to promote your book and your authorship, which I have some ideas for consistency and Curt is talking about, documentation and sharing your knowledge. It doesn't need to be like you're creating special content. You can literally be up at your desk, do like some selfie action, have a little talking. That's great video content. You type, a couple of takeaways maybe for people, even shorter is better because people's attention spans are short. So if you can get what you want to say. And as an author, Abigail, right, you should be able to put some words together really quickly that express a point. And it really doesn't need to be this long thought out thing. You're doing stuff throughout your day and you can document that, post it, and move on. It really doesn't need to be this time consuming thing. You have a thought, you have a nugget, maybe you're writing things down in a journal like I am, right? And so you get something that seems a little smart or a good thought, share that with the world. If it's smart to you, it's probably going to be smart to somebody else. And then the key to the game is interaction. So if you can spark something in somebody else, right, you're going to get some traction. People are going to sort of come into the content and want to move with you. And then we need to talk about something like, I think a lot of people get into this social media game, Curt, and they don't have a plan on the other end. A lot of people like start businesses and they don't move beyond the phase of creating a job for themselves. Now, in the beginning, when you start a business and when you start a social media account, it's a job, right? You got to fill in content, but what's the goal, right? Where do you want to go with it? What do you want to do? What's the outcome? And so Abigail, and she responded here, but then what about visual branding? Does it have to visually have the same look, color scheme, etc.? All right. So Curt, I don't know if you have some tips and tricks around this. I'm just going to answer Abigail's question because I do this fairly regularly. So if you aren't using canva.com, Abigail, you really need to get on there, because what you can do is you can create some banner looks, right? So with just about any Instagram, for example, LinkedIn, you can upload videos to these sites. And so all it takes is just a little bit of time to take a video you recorded on your phone, upload that to Canva. You can even upload Canva on the phone, although I think it's easier to do it on a desktop. And for free or very low cost, take these videos and brand them with a visual look. So you could take elements from the cover of your book. And maybe you want to use that as your brand and have that on everything that you do to create brand. For Curt, maybe everything's got the wine cup emoji just to keep it easy. And that's not even branding things, and using a Canva overlay or any of that kind of complicated stuff, which, by the way, if you're getting lost in the weeds and you're like, I don't know how to set up my LinkedIn profile, Google is your friend. How to set up my LinkedIn profile. You'll get tons of pages and videos, depending on the way you like to learn, that'll help you out with that. Sorry to go crazy. And Abigail says, I love Canva. I have a pro account. So Abigail, if you get lost with this at all, give me a call, give me a shout. I love Canva. I'll walk you through anything you need to know in a couple of minutes. We'll jump online. We'll get it knocked out. Go ahead, Curt.
No, so yeah, to Abigail's point, let me answer the first question. She said asked about consistency.
Yeah.
Consistency is whatever you want it to be. If you're posting one time a week, then post one time a week at the same time on the same day. If it's 3 times a week, post 3 times a week. Whatever it is, be consistent in everything you do. That applies to the amount of times per week you post, That applies to what time you post. That applies to the subject matter, because typically with social media, you want to pick the three to five topics. Okay. So be consistent in everything you do, the language you use. So like if you're a smart ass and you use a lot of smart ass language, then do that consistently. If you are witty, then be witty consistently. If you are more the academic type, then be more academic consistently. Okay. But just be consistent. Okay. In everything you do, because you need people to depend on you. Think of it this way. What would you think of a store that didn't have consistent hours? Well, then you're not going to shop there anymore because you can't depend on it to be there when you need it to be. You need your audience to be able to depend on you, or you need for them to be able to depend on you, that you're going to be there. And the only way you can do that is show up consistently. And that's why I plan stuff. Now, to the point about branding, to add to what Cameron said, visual branding, LinkedIn isn't quite like advertising, like you see Coke, but you can still brand yourself. So my suggestion is, in terms of visually branding yourself, pick some colors and fonts you want to be associated with. Maybe you can go on Fiverr and have an icon created. I just had my logo created for my podcast, which is called Bobbing for Hair Dryers. I'll get into the meaning of that later. But, like look at Coca-Cola. You could take out the words Coca-Cola and you could put hello, and it's Coke. Look at the rock band.
The font, the consistent font thing. These are things that I love, that kind of right? If you're going to do something, just be consistent with it. And that speaks to Abigail's piece, right? Consistency. If you have a consistent look, and I don't always do a great job with this with my Instagram accounts and all that sort of stuff, but if you have a consistent color in the background, consistent frame, people are going to see that and they're going to immediately identify it with you. I love that advice, Curt.
Or adding to that, look at AC/DC, the rock band. If I write hello with that font, you're not going to think hello. You're going to think AC/DC. Or maybe for your visuals, Abigail, maybe the how on the iPhone or smartphones you can do like filters, like a noir or a fuzzy. Maybe you're known for doing that, but or maybe I have the wine glass next to my name, and so when people see the wine glass, they're going to know it's me because nobody else has that in their name on LinkedIn. So pick something you're consistent with. And I actually have a free guide if anybody wants to DM me. I have a free guide. It's like a starter kit if you want. It's free, so anyways.
No, I love that. So you can go on the LinkedIn profile right now, just for anybody that's like DM, well, I don't understand that on LinkedIn terminology. Go in to Curt's account. You can find that in the description on the side there on LinkedIn. If you're on YouTube, it's down below in the description there. You can find that. If you're on Facebook, find that link to find. It's always on there. Whenever you see a BizDev Live show, I always include that LinkedIn link to the person that we are interviewing that day. Go in there, message Curt, connect with them. We always want networking in the comments. So Stephen Beaver just checking in. So whether it's Stephen or Charlene who's checking in, who's giving you some compliments there.
Thank you, Charlene.
Curt. We want you to network, right? So Charlene, I would love you to connect with Stephen, and Stephen, I'd love to for you to connect with Charlene, and Charlene, I'd love you to connect with Abigail, right? This is what this show is all about. So we can create these larger networks and use each other as resources, and that's really key, right? When we're branding and we're connecting with people, they're going to be connecting with somebody else, and they're going to say, well, I need an offer, or I need a LinkedIn. I got somebody that's struggling with LinkedIn. I need a LinkedIn coach. And so if the branding is there, think, oh, I know who.
And just to add one quick point to that, think of networking like a party. You can either sit on the sofa and drink your beer and not interact, or you can mingle with people. The more people you mingle with, the larger your network. And when you're doing social media, don't overthink it. Don't think there has to be a script. Just be yourself, because people trust other people. Okay, so be yourself. When I was first starting out, I got so wrapped up in trying to follow the rules, like, oh, do I have to use captions, hashtags, this or that? And it sucked the personality out of my content. So I'm a bit of a smartass, and sometimes I use profanity. So you know what? That's what my content is. And, people are going to love it or they're not. But the thing is, the people that are attracted to you and your profile, those are people that'll be part of your tribe, so to speak, because they're going to, because they're not going to go to your profile unless they're okay with that.
I'm glad you kind of circled around that, because I was trying to make that point earlier with the humor piece, and maybe you're in another business. I don't know if I finalized that. Hit me in the comments if you're looking for more explanation around this. But if you're whatever industry you are, you don't have to show up inauthentically. Now, what do I mean by inauthentically? Because I think this word gets really, really stretched and dented by the perception of the word. By authentic, I'm talking about the Go-Giver, right? Bob Berg and John David Mann wrote this book, Go-Giver, short read. I really recommend it. We got some recommended books that Curt recommends, and we'll talk about those as well, because I think they're really great reads. But while we're talking about this authenticity thing, definitely look at the Go-Giver and what they use it as an example of authenticity. Because when you speak from a place, and I'll use LinkedIn people that you can find, right? So if you find Denise Panza on LinkedIn, she's somebody that sells mortgages. Now, for anybody that's had any experience with the mortgage industry, can you think of a more paperwork, dry, just not a very friendly type of feeling that you get from you think of mortgage, financial, it's a big deal, it's suit and tie. Denise Panza is anything but. And she does these posts and letter boards, and just it's her. And I'm not suggesting that you show up on LinkedIn as her, but what I am suggesting is you take a look at people that are doing content differently, because you don't want to do it the same way that Denise does it, or that Curt does it, or the way that Cameron does it. You want to do it your way. And I guarantee your way is going to attract an audience. The key thing that's going to be the differentiator between you actually attracting the audience that you want and the audience that you get is how you brand yourself and target your content, which is what Curt's talking about, right? Are you understanding who is the person that you're trying to talk to? And so, I was talking before about, the idea of understanding your ideal client, right? And talking to them, being your authentic self, but talking to that ideal client and posting content that's helpful to that ideal client. I want to get into, I don't know if you wanted to jump in on there, and we got Stephen saying the book is awesome and the next thing, right? So I don't know.
Do you mind if I just add a quick?
Yeah, please. And then we'll get into our next talking point. Absolutely.
So about being authentic, here's another thing that a lot of people worry about, because one of the other comments was the hurdle on getting started. A lot of people worry about making their stuff perfect. Here's what you can do. Go to YouTube and type in Wine Taster's Choice. That's the channel that my company has. Look at my videos from early 2020 compared to the one I released like six or 7 weeks ago. There's a massive difference in quality. And me being a Virgo and a perfectionist, I want to have like, Hollywood production quality, but it's not realistic. So just don't worry about if the quality is not great. Okay. Just again, people appreciate stuff from the heart. So, and another thing, here's a really, really quick tip. People love a journey. So maybe if you're new to LinkedIn, you could put, okay, hey guys, this is my very first post ever. Or you could say, I'm new to posting, and you can lay out your plan and get people inspired, because we all love a journey, right? And people want to follow that. For example, look at how many times have we seen somebody post their weight loss journey online or on TV, and people are following it and they're rooting them for them, or some people are maybe cheering against them or whatever. But people love a journey. So just get on there. Don't worry about making it perfect. Just start producing. Type something up. Or release a quick video with a quick tip that's, under a minute or something like that. Because just by starting, it's like that saying, a runner's hardest steps are the first ones. Okay. Just start. Because if you're like me, like I'm 51 and I didn't learn this lesson until 2 years ago, I would hold myself back and wait until everything was perfect. And it doesn't work. Okay. Just start and you'll get better. So yeah, just start.
I love that. And I want to go to the comments once again. We got Stephen Beaver teaching a little bit of a master course in the comments here. Appreciate you, Stephen. I wanted to bring up a point with Stephen before I get into his comment, which I think is also really, really good education. But TMB, baby, glad to see you, my friend. So this is how you know you're building community online. For anybody that's watching this now, if you're part of Stephen Beaver's community, you probably know what TMB stands for. Curt, do you know what TMB stands for?
No, I don't.
And that I was expecting that, right? Because you're not part of Stephen Beaver's community, right? And I can say I'm a part of Stephen Beaver's community, and Stephen is going to know that I'm a part of his community because I know that TMV stands for Take More Vacations. That's his thing. That's what he talks about in his content. And so you can take something as small as an abbreviation like that, and you can start to understand who's watching your content, who's participating. These are these little key inside kind of things, inside jokes, the things that you can do with your community. And it starts with 2 people, and then it's 3 people, and then it's 4 people, and then it's 5 people. And those 5 people can turn into a lot more people. But you have to do, like Curt's saying, you got to get started. I love it. And Stephen says, arguably the most powerful person in the world, the president, is hated by 50% of the population. My advice, have more people hate you. Right. And so this goes to the idea of like, take the judgment out of it. If you do something online and somebody hates it, so what? That just probably means it's more likely that somebody else likes it and loves it.
Yep.
Haters are going to hate and lovers are going to love. Be yourself, and the culture is what you want to build. I think one of the other things too, and Charlene says, yes, just start. Rebecca says, great advice. I think one of the big things, and we've talked a lot about it on this show and also with the Master Connection series that I do with Steve Spiro, is, and this is the really positive side of social media that not a lot of people talk about. There's somebody out there that needs your service. There's somebody out there that needs your authenticity, that needs your message, right? Because if you have a mess, then you have a message, right? Because you've done something probably to get over that, and you found some solutions, and somebody needs to hear that. And when you don't get online and you don't share that message, and when you don't put that out, you're doing a disservice to the world, because you're not letting the people that need that message and that need your service, you're not letting them know that it's there for you. For example, yesterday I was having Wi-Fi issues. Thankfully, Wi-Fi is working in my house today, in my home office and all that. And so I'm able to do this live broadcast. Knock on wood, everything stays up and running. But yesterday it was an issue, and I knew where to go. I knew there was a place for me, and that was a connection, a relationship, social media information. I was able to find them online and get the phone number. If you don't have your stuff accessible, when people need you, they won't know that you exist. They won't know that you're there. And if I didn't know that I had that solution in place, I would have had to cancel my stuff yesterday. I would have not been able to operate. I wouldn't have been able to get the work that I got done yesterday. And so your solution needs to be in somebody else's hands. And when you're not promoting yourself, you're not giving people a chance to see that. So sorry to get on my soapbox there, Curt, but I thought that was important.
Because actually, think of it, here's something everybody can relate to. Have you ever had a situation where more than one person has told you the same thing and it just didn't click? Maybe you're doing something wrong, or maybe it's a spouse that told you something or whatever. But then somebody else tells you the same message, but words it differently, and it clicks. So that's the importance of, getting your message out there. And for those of you worried, well, I want to go in the wine space in LinkedIn, but there's already 5,000 people doing the same thing I'm doing. Don't worry about how many other people are in your competitive space. Here's a quick example. Late night TV show hosts. They all do exactly the same thing. A band, opening monologue, jokes, guests, some stupid game they do with the guest, like play pin the tail on the donkey or something. But there have been many that have come and gone, but only a few have really stuck around. But why did I love watching David Letterman over Jay Leno? I just like David Letterman. So they're all doing the exact same thing, but they all have their own audience. So you can go into the same field as other people, but it's your voice, it's your personality that's going to make the difference. And that's why you shouldn't worry about if there's other people in your competitive space. Because believe me, I went through that back and forth in my head before I decided on my current niche on LinkedIn.
I love that. Yeah, it's not I think for folks, we're all complicated people. We got more than one thing going on. So, you talked about your career and pivoting. I think one of the things that really excited me, because we have a little bit of a similar story getting into the pandemic. I was telling you before we jumped online today about my journey in 2009. And I was like, do I open up Toth Event Staffing, which I ended up opening in 2011, or do I become a social media guru? And I was talking about some of the regret around not focusing then, because I knew then. I knew the importance of social media, but I didn't double down and say, all right, this is something I want to commit to. And you look at other people that committed and did YouTube videos every day, starting in 2009, or every week in 2009, just with some sort of consistency in 2009, around that same time that I was jumping in and deciding whether I wanted to do this. And they've built $100 million businesses. And I'm not saying you're going to, start a $100 million business with your online media presence, but even a small percentage of that, I know you'd be happy with that. And I think that's really the beauty and the possibility with social media. I think very much to your point, Curt, people are looking at this stuff like, oh my goodness, there's so many other people out there doing what I do. First of all, understand that, if I mention somebody like Gary Vaynerchuk and you happen to recognize that name, because he's got a lot of fans, he's got a lot of followers, that sort of thing. I speak to a lot of people, they have absolutely no clue who they are. And if you're on the other side of this on the other side of the screen, and you're like, I have no idea. Exactly. This guy's got millions and millions of followers, made a ton of money, has social media companies. You have no idea who he is. That's the point. There's such an abundant world that we're looking at. And so this is the opportunity with social media. I know we've both been jumping in and talking like, Charlene says, Cameron Toth, being consistent with talking about what I do online. I am usually in the midst of creating, and I ignore sharing and promoting consistently, so folks know. And so that was a response to me asking her, what do you mean? Because she was saying, I need to do much better with promo. So, I would say that the wrong way to think about it is promotional material, Charlene. Just share the journey. And so if you think about sharing the journey, right, you're on vacation, and sometimes I don't pick up the camera and then I regret it because I can't remember some of those moments. They sort of fade from my memory. So we spend a lot of time documenting the journey on the vacation, where we've been, the highlights, and we regret it when we don't do that. I think the same thing is true with your business. You can have a lot of fun just documenting what you're doing. I was listening to somebody in the Rise Garage show today talking about Post-it notes. So they have their Post-it notes up on the wall of the things that they need to do. And rather than crumpling up that Post-it note once it's done and throwing it into the recycling bin, they put it on the other side of the wall so they can see what they've gotten done in that day. And so think about your business and the things that you're doing. What are you doing with the questions that you're answering on the phone? Document that. Record yourself on the phone, and then just take that phone message. You've probably gotten pretty smooth at answering that question. So get that phone, that second device that you probably got lying around, like an iPad or something like that. Document that while you're on the phone giving that answer, and then post that. And those things can be also for your business and operational stuff. Those things can create great FAQs that you can hand off to other staff as you build your organization. Maybe bring in a VA to answer the phone for you. These are things that can help you. Curt, I know I love this topic, as you can tell. So I jump in with both feet. I want to kind of give this to you to sort of wrap up in a nice bow for you. You talk about social media not being easy, but there's a science to it. And I want to kind of close this out on this. What can people do? How can they follow up with you? And what can they do to really be effective on social media? I'll leave that question for you. I'll put it up in the air, and I'll let you bang it down.
So, okay. Well, thank you. So one, send me a DM and a connection request on LinkedIn. Also, I'm in the middle of putting together a course. Now, I'm not trying to sell anybody here because it's not done yet, but I'm offering free coaching Okay, it's to get you started, all in return for a testimonial, provided you're happy with what I do. So I just want to throw that out there. If you need help, because I can.
And let me re-say that to people because maybe they didn't understand. So you can reach out to Curt right now. He's willing to help you and this is
For free.
a great way if you're trying to jump into a new industry, a new thing, right? He is willing to trade his service to you. And this is a way that you can operate in the world as well for a testimonial, Google review, a great email that he can then use on his website and his documented materials. So right now you have an opportunity to reach out to him, no cost to you, other than the time it takes to reach out to him, explain what you need, and get started. I love that. Go ahead, Curt.
Okay, and I'm sorry, can you repeat the second part of the question after getting in contact with me?
Right. So you said there's a science to it. So if
yeah.
somebody's getting started with social media, let's say they don't feel like you're a good fit. They feel uncomfortable reaching out. They're in their introvert mode. What should they do to try to get started with this social media thing and be effective?
Well, for me to explain that, we'd probably need a good hour, but let me give you the abridged version. So let's just start with when you're creating content for social media, you're not just posting any old thing, hoping it gets traction. No, you use a targeted approach. So for example, when I had to determine my target audience, it took me about a week because I went through a series of questions. What's the age group? What do they make per year? What kind of car do they drive? What kind of music do they like? How do they dress? Or do they have kids? Do they not? Are they married? What kind of events do they like? Do they like going to museums? You want to craft the image of your target audience down to every detail, down to their sense of fashion, the car, their musical taste, the money they spend, whatever. I have a multi-page document where I go through that, and it takes time. And what you'll find is when you do that, and I don't want to harp too much on this one thing, but just that alone, to do it properly, you're going to go back and forth. It's probably going to take you about a week or at least several days because you're going to write it down. You're going to fine tune it. And then everything you craft is going to be targeted specifically to them. Okay. Here's a good example. For anybody old enough, do you remember that Apple commercial in the 1984 Super Bowl that had this George Orwell 1984 theme to it? It wasn't your typical computer ad by any stretch of the imagination. And as I was reading about that ad, they talked about how Apple only went after a select group of people. They didn't try to appeal to the world. You find your target audience and you go after them and only them. All right, here's another way to put it. I can think of, and this was actually in a movie, but I've seen examples of this in real life where there was a kid getting beat up in school and he didn't feel like he belonged and he felt like the outcast. And then somebody came along and they just spoke to him in a way that resonated with him and he felt like he belonged. Okay, I'm sure we've all known somebody like that or maybe seen a movie like that. So think of that when it comes to getting your audience. Speak only to your audience and speak in a way that resonates with them. Again, using the surfer example. Are you going to look like a surfer when you do your social media content? Are you going to talk like a surfer? Are you going to use font and imagery? It's like when I was determining my target audience, I even created a board in Pinterest of imagery that I was going to use. So anyways, I went a little bit long on that part, but so there is a science so that's a start. Okay. And how else should I put it? Start with your target audience. And then the other thing you can do is, here's a good tip. Find other leaders who are in your space. Okay. So let's say you're let's say you are in, I don't know, marketing. Okay. And let's say you're in marketing for shoes. Okay. You're marketing, you're working to brand Nike or you're marketing shoes. Find other marketers on LinkedIn who are in your same space, who are successful and who have a big following and start mimicking what they do. Start observing. I would even write down on a piece of paper, and this is one of the things I have in a free guide I created. Observe what they do. Write down what they do and start mimicking. I'll give you an example. I was a chef for 27 years. You don't just develop your own style like that. How did I do it? I learned from other chefs what they were doing. I mimicked what they did, and gradually my own style formed. Do the same thing when it comes to social media. Find other people who are much more successful than you in your target audience, okay, who have a big well, you can't always judge it by following, because I know people with a low number of followers who are making a great living, and they have a great conversion rate of clients. And I know other people that have like 80,000 followers, but they don't have many clients. So you can't always judge it by followers, but you can judge it by the content. Look at the engagement they're getting. And then again,
and I just want to bring that, yeah, just that point of like, what's the goal, right? Are you trying to sell 1,000 things at 50 cents a piece, or $1 a piece, or $2 a piece? Or are you trying to sell, 3 things at $5,000? It's that kind of thing with your social media. You need to look at your goal. Is it a business that's based on, volume? Is it based on, I'm just looking for these high-end clients? Because I guarantee you, if you're looking for that higher echelon, you could have 30 followers. If you have the right followers, that's what you're looking for, and that's who you want to be connecting with. And so spending less time on the people that have no business in your niche, and not spending a lot of time with those folks, is going to make sense for you. But if you're trying to do something that's a little bit wider and popular and more about, the people and getting, everybody in at $1 or $5 or $20 because you want to sell sweatshirts, that's a popularity thing. That's just trying to get, your numbers up across social media. You're trying to sell a workshop for CEOs. There's not that many CEOs around.
Well, that ties into the science behind it, and they're, like I said, this could go on for an hour just on the science behind it, but just to understand that it's not a guessing game. There is a science behind it, and there is a great deal of work that goes into creating a plan to create content specifically designed for your target audience.
Curt, man, thank you so much for this. You've been awesome.
Thank you.
And forgive me for running on in the mouth. I love this topic.
No, it's okay.
I love the personal branding thing, because I think it's really important for people. I think it's really important to get started. It's not so important to get right. Like, I think people need to look at this as not a right or wrong thing. Do try to do some sort of branding. Try to have a theme. Try to be consistent. And work towards that and plan towards that. And I guarantee you're going to have better results. If anybody's watched the recent film, you can see this message in so many different places, but I loved it. And the Beyonce song that goes with it, and the movie with that Will Smith recently did, King Williams, right? Just the idea that if you do not plan, you plan to fail. And I think that's the key with branding and social media. If you want to be consistent, you want to have regular content, you need to plan it. You need to make it a part of your day. You need to time block, and you need to put some effort into it. Reach out to Curt. He's willing to help you. Please, 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 when you watch this program, take action on this stuff. If you get inspired in the moment and you say, I'm ready to do something, turn the program off and go do. That's what this is all about. I'm much more concerned with you going out and being successful, and then being able to come back and tell me about it would be awesome. All right, Curt, I'll let you close this out. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody watching. Like I said, DM me if you have questions. I'm also offering some free coaching. All I want in return is a testimonial if you found my coaching helpful. And because I'm in the middle of putting together a course, and that's all I got. I thank you all for your attention, and thank you, Cameron, for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
I appreciate you, Curt. All right, tomorrow we have we're going to be talking about personal branding. So if you tune in tomorrow, we'll be talking about putting people first. So we'll continue a little bit of this conversation on the customer service side. Thank you so much. I love this personal branding topic. Curt, you're amazing. BizDev Live.
Thank you.
BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. BizDev Live. Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation. Empathy and inspiration. Biz Dev Live. Business development, not even selling it. Biz D with C. Brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C. Brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. Biz Dev Live. Biz Dev Live.